Hello everybody, welcome to episode 134 of Psycho's Platters, Hair Metal Finds Part 2. Hope everybody's doing themselves well this week, powered by coffee as usual. People ask me about the t-shirts that I wear. I thought I'd throw this right out to you here. This is actually the Black Crowes Crowology t-shirt. It was from the summer of 2010 when they came down here at the AMP in northwest Arkansas. I was supposed to go to that gig. That weekend, I remember, was extremely horrible. I ended up with some nasty viral infection. I'm telling you, I missed out. A buddy of mine went and got this for me, though, shortly after the tour, though, that they did for the summer. They went on their second hiatus. They've been broken up since 2015. Hopefully they'll get back together maybe sometime down the line, but that weekend was just such an incredible weekend. I want to say it was in September of 2010 because I'm not kidding you. I had even VIP meet and greet passes the night before when Pat Travers and Rick Derringer played, and I'm like, I love those guys. And it was like an hour or two before the show, I collapsed. I literally collapsed and passed out, I guess. At least that's what I was told. So that was about 2 weeks of hell right there. But guess what? Here I am in 16, still talking to you guys, which is a good thing. All right. So, anywho, part doso of the finds. I wanna bring up really quick though, and I'll touch on it again at the end of the episode, where I am 10 subs away from 250. We will have a contest when we get to 250 subscribers. A handful of small prizes I'm going to be awarding on this one, and I'll tell you what the thread's going to be when I hit the 250. But I think you guys will like what I've got going here. Collector and Stuff was asking about one of the prizes a few episodes ago, and I told him that I was going to try to get a handful of these CDs, and I did get to acquire a handful of these CDs. So that there will be a Beatle. Yeah, a Beatles CD is going to be one of the prizes in the contest. But like I said, guys, if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do, because the quicker you guys like and subscribe, the quicker we can have this contest, right? Right. Okay. So, part 2, Hair Metal Finds. This is still the continuation of the Salvation Army episode from about going on a month back. It was a failed garage sale. All of these albums were in a garage sale at one point or another for $2 a piece. But of course, I got to get them at $1 a piece, so I cannot complain. All right, we start off again here. I brought up Golden Earring in the last episode. This one here is from 1978. It is a hard-rocking LP, of course, called Grab It for a Second. Leather and Against the Grain are the recommended tracks for this particular release. This, of course, being on MCA. This is front, this is back. Last episode, I brought up a big history about Golden Earring for a Netherlands rock band there. Yes, this is on the what I call the tan and beige MCA. Next up here, I've been always a big fan of the 80s version of this band from 1983 on PVC Records, except Midnight Highway. If I remember correctly, several years ago, in what I call the Steve Los collection, I grabbed a promo of this sucker. It was really nice. This one here, of course, is really clean. This one was a compilation album that was put out from previous Accept albums. This particular comp, though, has an edited version of the song Son of a Bitch. It doesn't say it anywhere on the record of the jacket that it's an edited version. The main chorus is replaced with Born to be Whipped, along with other edits as well. This is the front, this is the back. Let me see if I can show you real quick here. This is the PVC label. Some of my favorites from them, Balls to the Wall and Fast as a Shark. Fast as a Shark to me was like one of the beginnings of thrash. I'm always like Fast as a Shark. Udo has been out of the band again for several years now, and I'm led to believe that This is the current tour that Udo's on right now is the last tour that he's going to be playing any Accept songs. I could be wrong on that, but I could have sworn I thought I read that in Classic Rock Magazine. This next one here from 1985, Canadian band Helix with Long Way to Heaven. This is on Capitol. This is the front. This is the back on the Rainbow 80s issue. Now this one here, Helix was formed in '74, and they were originally called the Helix Field Band. How about this one? A little fun but weird point of interest about these guys. In 1984, so a year before this album came out, the band did a video for a cover version of Crazy Elephant's Gimme Gimme Good Lovin'. There was a censored version and there was an uncensored version. A censored version, of course, going to MTV, and an uncensored one for whatever outlets would actually play the uncensored. It also had an appearance of Rip Taylor, crazy comedian. You've seen him before on what is it, $1.98 Beauty Show, The Monkees, a bunch of other things. But they also had semi-nude models involved in this thing. Well, now remember, we're talking 1984. It turned out a few years later that this particular video caused another minor stir of controversy because it appeared one of those topless models who had played Miss Georgia in the video was none other than 16-year-old Tracy Lords, the porn actress. Yeah, go figure, right? That's kind of a little bit out there, in my opinion. All right. So that one, like I said, that Helix one from '85. From '83, I've heard of this band. I'm actually very happy to find an album. This is my first girls' school album I've got in my collection. This one here being Played Dirty on the Bronze label, which also was the same label as What 70s Band? What 70s band played on Bronze? I know some of you people are going to give me different answers, but the main one. Who said Uriah Heep out there? You're very correct. You're very correct. They were on the Bronze imprint. This was, of course, ran through Mercury. But Girls' School kind of had an interesting history. They started out, sorry, like I said, I do a lot of research here. Started out in 1975 as Painted Lady. That was the name of the band. And they stayed that way until late '78. Now, certain members of Painted Lady that would go through their ranks, renowned jazz guitarist Deidre Cartwright and future member of the Go-Go's Kathy Valentine. Both were in Painted Lady. In late '78, Girls' School made their first single. Early '79, Lemmy, yeah, you know, Motorhead, Hawkwind, he heard it, and he signed him up for the opening slot of the '79 Motorhead tour. This particular album, though, has got a few vocal points here. This album was produced by Jim Leah and Noddy Holder. Now, if those names sound familiar to you, that's cool. But if it doesn't, that's because they're half of the band Slade. Yeah, that's right. I didn't even know that they produced this thing. I thought that was kind of cool. Also, Lemmy supposedly appears as background vocals on this thing. I don't know the tracks. But, like I said, I thought that was kind of cool. This one here, though, this particular album, it didn't really chart due to poor promotion and label distribution struggles. It didn't even hit the top 50 in the UK, and after this album, guitarist Kelly Johnson left, and she would end up dead in 2007 of cancer. Girls' School still together with the other three original members, so I thought that was kind of cool to know that too. Alright, what else do we got here? Also from 1983, on Mercury, Lita Ford's Out for Blood. Now, how do I explain this? A few months back, I snagged the original cover to this. This is the second version cover. If you remember that from that episode, good. If not, go on Wiki and go take a look. The original cover has got Lita in a spider web of steel chains and a blood-spurting guitar. Yeah, I guess it was deemed kind of offensive, so to speak, back in '83, and so they changed it to this for the front. The back looks like this, and little points of interest here on this. Like I said, this was the debut album from her. Runaways already were broke up already, but this one came out in '83. The other people on here, Neil Merriweather on bass and Dusty Watson on drums. Normally I'd be like, okay, I never heard of these people, but I dug around a little bit, as you guys know already. I always try to do. Neil Merriweather, the bass player on this particular album, he got his start in English bands in the mid-1960s, but ended up in a band called Flying Circus. I think it was around '67, '68. And he ended up having a loose association with Rick James. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. I'm Rick James, bitch. Yeah, that Rick James. And what the funny part about it is, after he ended up getting associated with them when Rick was still with the Minor Birds, but Neil Young was already out of the band at that point. So after the Minor Birds broke up, and I want to say this was about '69 or '70, Neil ended up in a band called Salt and Pepper. No, not Salt and Pepper with hot and smushy. No, not that Salt and Pepper. Salt and Pepper with Rick James, and they cut 2 records as well. By the time this album came out in '83, he ended up being betrayed by Lita Ford, according to the article I read, for not getting paid for his assistance in management and producing this particular album. He quit music biz for quite a while after he ended up helping his friend set up Roadrunner Records. Yeah, you know, the hard rock, heavy metal label Roadrunner. Yeah, he got him to help him sign a few acts for Roadrunner. So I thought that was kind of cool. Dusty Watson, he would end up leaving after '84, after the tour for this one, and he would jump to Legs Diamond, and then later on in the '90s he was in Rhino Bucket, which I just recently heard of Rhino Bucket. So kind of really cool stuff there too. Alright, next up, still in the shrink, from 1989, this is a RCA Record Club release. So I'm glad to have this. White Lion's Big Game. I didn't even know this thing came out on vinyl. I'm used to seeing... okay, well this is the 3rd album, right? So I'm used to seeing Pride on vinyl. But White Lion, of course, they got started in 1983. They were originally formed from the Danish member Mike Tramp. There's the front, there's the back. Of course, singer for them. But yeah, Mike Tramp ended up meeting Vito Bratta, who, that's him there, from Staten Island, New York. He got 2 more musicians originally in the first album lineup, Fight to Survive, which they got signed to on Elektra in '84. They happened to have Felix Robinson playing bass in the lineup on that. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, great. If not, he was a former bassist for Angel. Yeah, you know that band from Casablanca Records. So he was in Angel until they broke up. I think it was like '80, '81. Managed to find White Lion, so he ends up on Fight to Survive. Fight to Survive ended up, Elektra didn't like the final mix for Fight to Survive, so they dropped him. What happened in '85 was, I guess, there was a label called Grand Slam Records. It was a smaller outfit. They managed to pick up the rights to release the first album, which they did. But that particular album, I guess, is actually a kind of a vinyl rarity because the company went bankrupt a couple months later after putting their version of the album out. So, you know, if you're into hair metal collecting, you may want to look for either of those versions, but it sounds like to me that the Grand Slam version could actually be tougher to get than the Elektra. So, yes, anyways, Felix Robinson ends up leaving, and Capozzi, the other guy, the drummer. So they left, okay, in '84, and they ended up getting former drummer of Anthrax, Greg D'Angelo. That's right. So he was in Anthrax before he ended up jumping over here. And Dave Spitz, who he worked with Lita Ford, if I remember correctly, too, later on. But he would end up only lasting a month with the band because he would jump to Black Sabbath and would end up in the Black Sabbath's Seventh Star recording album sessions. I think he was on another album too. I like Seventh Star, very underrated. So that's what you've got here, and then of course, then James Lomenzo comes in. So like I said, 1989 press here. The big singles off of that though, Little Fighter. I like Little Fighter, and their version of Radar Love, which I'm like, whatever. It was a top 20 album in 1989 though, so go figure. Next up, from Portland, Oregon, Black and Blue on Geffen. Yes, Black and Blue. Here's the front. Here's the back. This one, of course, the Without Love album. It has a slight tear, but I don't care. Like I said, dollar hair metal albums, I'm going to grab them. Now, mainly, though, this band got started in 1981 from Jamie St. James and Tommy Thayer. They're the ones that started it out. Originally, the band name was Movie Star. That was what they called themselves until early '82 when they changed their name to Black and Blue. And lo and behold, they managed to get a track on the first edition of Metal Massacre, which I came across that thing like once. I think it was like priced way too much, or else I would have grabbed it. But that first edition of Metal Massacre also had songs from Metallica, Rat, and Malice. So they all were on this Metal Massacre album. Special guests on this particular release, Jim Valance, who he was writing partner with, occasional writing partner with Bryan Adams. Adam Baum, who he was a hair metal guitarist. I think he had a band on Geffen Records too. It didn't last really long. Steve Porcaro from Toto, and Mike Reno from Loverboy ends up singing backgrounds on We Got the Fire on here. So really cool to have that in the collection too. And let's see, I got two left, guys. This one here, I really scratched my head on this because I've never seen a copy of this before. This is from 1981, Starfighters on Arista/Jive Records. Now, I know you're like maybe going, who the hell is Starfighters? Here's the front, here's the back. This is the Jive record label. Starfighters got themselves started in 1979 in Birmingham, England. They were in the, what do they call it, the new wave of British heavy metal. Alright. They were originally called Savage, though, back then. The main person that's in this particular band to take notice is guitarist Stevie Young. Now, Stevie Young may definitely sound familiar to you guys, at least as of late. Stevie Young was the nephew, yeah, that's right, he was the nephew of Angus and Malcolm Young from AC/DC. They also ended up being able to get an opening slot on some of AC/DC's tour dates. I'm assuming, of course, this is for those About to Rock tour, is my guess for this one, but I could be wrong on that. But Stevie, they ended up making one more album. They ended up signing with Butch Stone as a manager. Butch Stone was the original manager for Black Oak, Arkansas, and Crocus. So they ended up jumping to him. And right around that time in '83, they put out a second album. Jive didn't want to pay, pretty much, and so the band broke up for a few years. Stevie Young, after that, would end up, I remember this too, because I was supposed to go on this tour, the Blow Up Your Video tour for AC/DC. Stevie ends up taking Malcolm's place back then, and then he you don't hear from him for way long time until now, because Stevie Young is now a member of AC/DC due to Malcolm having to retire due to his Alzheimer's and other ailments. So he's on the Rocker Bust album, Stevie Young is. And so it's kind of neat to get this. I haven't heard it yet, but very cool to find that from '81. Lastly, I got one more album here for you. This is good old classic, late 70s, Sinful from Angel. I've always liked Angel, believe it or not. They, you know, it's one of those guilty pleasures, but God, they do rock sometimes, don't they? The original title to this, here's the front and there's the back. I'll show you the nice, beautiful Casablanca label. This one here I thought was kind of funny in this copy, because it actually, somebody stuck a little label on here and it said, for reorders, call, and then it was a Little Rock, Arkansas number. So I'm wondering if this belonged to a distribution rep, or I'm not sure who or whatever. But the original album title for Angel Sinful was called Bad Publicity. And Bad Publicity, actually, some copies were made. It was a different cover and all in the title, and they slipped out. Some of them actually got out there into the wild. And then they were like, no, and they changed it to this. I want to say this was the last album Angel did, studio-wise. They ended up doing Live Without a Net in '80. Of course, who's in here? Felix Robinson, yeah, who would end up 5 years later in White Lion. But I could have sworn, I thought I remember reading this week on my Facebook feed that Angel got, all 5 guys from Angel, I think it was this lineup too, got together for the first time in over 35 years, together in one room. I hope that's a good sign. Currently, at least, it's mentioning that Frank Domino and Barry Brandt, singer and drummer, are basically the members of Angel. But if Jafria is really going to stay involved in this, which I hope he does too, and everybody else, and Felix, I think, you know, it'd be nice to hear a new album from these guys. I'm not going to hold my breath, but just having them in the same room for the first time in 35 years is really cool. If you get the CD copy of this, there's 2 bonus tracks. 20th Century Fox's in Virginia. Both of them were in the Casablanca movie sound film Foxes, which I think came out in '79 or '80. And so that'd be really cool for you Angel fans to grab. Alright. 2 new subs for this week, Clifton Ward and Garen Paul Nail. Thank you guys for subscribing. My goal here to educate and entertain, of course, here in Psycho's Platters. Alright, let's see. Let's get to the shout-outs here. Wax Museum with Ronnie Dark and Night Owl Lounge with Mike Adams. Sunday night 6 to 9 and 9 to 10 Central Standard Time. The best damn Sunday night radio shows out there. Also another damn good radio show. This is Rock and Roll Radio. Also happens to be at the Sunday night time slot. If I remember correctly, it's 8 to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time on Westcott Radio. Go like all of those pages on Facebook. Mike Bully remembers Alan Freed. That's on Monday nights. Also, you know, like him on Facebook there too. Along with Freak Beat with Ken Worth on 107.5 The Spy out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Real kick-ass show, 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. He does his homework. It's older music and contemporary psych. Really good stuff there. Thrifty Music Collectors Group, Tim Smith and Company. Go check out, he's got a new channel for book reviews. He's decided to do that too. So if you are the literary sort, like I am as well, you will go check out that as well too. So cheers to you, Tim, on that bit. Shindig, the best damn English rock magazine out there. I'm trying to coordinate with them. Could there be a prize from them in this contest? I'm not sure. I'm still working with them on this. I hope so. And lastly, the YouTube vinyl community. Without the YouTube vinyl community, none of us would be able to do this, would we? And of course, you know, I love you guys. Keep watching, keep commenting, keep sharing with your friends, your enemies, your frenemies. For Psycho's Platters, let's get to that 250 sub mark. Because there's, like I said, this is going to be an interesting thread. Going to have a handful of prizes for you guys. Take care, God bless, rock on, and hear you next week.